Okay, I'd like to invite people to take their seats. Please take your seats so we can begin the next part of our program. I don't know. Can you please take your seats? Thank you. We'd like to get moving with the next part of our program. It's truly fantastic. It's truly fantastic to hear the swell of voices and conversation and dialogue rise to that level in a room. You know you're really doing engagement, I think. I hope. You all have been having great conversations with each other. But we're going to move on our program to our second panel. The panel is titled, "The City is Not Our Laboratory, The Promise of Knowledge Co-Production." And the panel will be moderated by Professor Nick Theodore. Professor Theodore is a distinguished professor in UIC's Department of Urban Planning and Policy, as well as the director of the Center for Urban Economic Development, QED. You heard reference to QED in the first panel. His research focuses on industrial change and the restructuring of employment regimes, economic informality, urban governance. His research agenda is also motivated by core commitments to understand how processes of urbanization are remaking and entrenching social inequalities, patterns of uneven development, and modes of political economic exclusion. He currently serves as an editor of the International Journal of Urban and Regional Research. Please welcome Professor Nick Theodore and the panel.
Thanks.
He will introduce the panelists.
All right, Joe. Thanks, Joe. And thanks to all of you. It's great seeing so many people here at the Urban Forum. It's my pleasure to introduce Alonzo Waheed, who is a program director at Equity and Transformation. Equity and Transformation was founded in 2018, and it was established to uplift the voices and power of Black workers, Black informal economy workers here in Chicago. And I'm also pleased to introduce Pablo Alvarado, who is a co-executive director of the National Day Labor Organizing Network, also known as NDLON. NDLON was founded officially, formally, in 2001, and NDLON is a national network of immigrant and workers' rights organizations, and Pablo's here joining us from Southern California, and I think wondering, is this really spring in Chicago? But anyway. Before we dive in, I just want to set the stage a little bit, because these two organizations have more in common than you might realize. Both are engaged in community organizing and base building. Both are committed to leadership development and political education, with the goal of strengthening the voice of workers who've been excluded from debates about how to redress economic inequality and institutional racism. Both have been engaged in mutual aid efforts, particularly during the pandemic, to reach impacted communities, those communities that really could not be reached and have not been reached by government assistance. Both are focused on policy change and the transformation of unjust systems. And, appropriate for this panel, both are leaders in thinking strategically about the role of research, thinking strategically about the role of research in supporting, organizing, and building worker power, in the role of research in developing counter-narratives about the root causes of economic inequality, research that evaluates the effectiveness of programmatic interventions, research that shapes policy agendas and has been involved in policy wins, and finally, research that affects institutional change. Both organizations have been leaders in social movement-led research. They've initiated research projects. They have forged partnerships with academics and research centers. And they've co-designed and co-implemented research projects with the goal of producing new knowledge on the urban condition. Given who's built these organizations, given who these organizations and the communities that they mobilize, and given the current political climate that we're all in at this moment, these organizations are needed more than ever, at least at any point in my lifetime. So the stakes are high, and I appreciate both of you being here with us today. So Alonzo, I want to start with you. Maybe just tell us a little bit more about Equity and Transformation and how it was founded, who it works with, and so on.
I want to start off by saying it's great to see you again. It's been a while. We've been doing a lot of work. And thank you all for being able to attend today. With that, Equity and Transformation is an organization that's founded and led by formerly incarcerated individuals. Equity and Transformation is an organization that's founded and led by formerly incarcerated individuals. So you can imagine for a moment, right, when we're stepping out saying that we want to do revolutionary work, the barriers that we'll have to deal with. And one of the main barriers is, do we even know what we're talking about, right? And this is where the research comes in at. In the very beginning of the creation of our organization, we made sure that the research part was one of our major pillars. And the reason why we did that is because we knew that individuals wasn't going to trust us. We were the individuals that were thrown away, the individuals that were shunned, the individuals that society said that, you know what, they're worthless. So with that, we said that we're going to come back into society and we're going to show them that we're so much more than that we have genius, that we have purpose, and that with that, you're throwing away your solutions. They're throwing away their solutions. So with that, we decided that Equity and Transformation would be an organization that's not only led by formerly incarcerated individuals, but it would be an organization that's community-led, an organization that is not going to parachute into a community and say, you know what, we have the solutions because this is the hot topic right now, but we're going to be part of the community and we're here to stay. We're here to stay.
That's right.
And our mission is to build social and economic equity for the Black workers that's engaged in the informal economy. Individuals may ask, Alonzo, what is the informal economy? First of all, it's the informal, which means that it's not the formal economy. So with the formal economy, that's that regular 9 to 5 that you go work so hard for, and then you're being taxed for also. So now when you're talking about the informal economy, it's anything that's outside of that, whether it's if you braiding hair, whether you beating on buckets, whether you're selling loose squares, bottled water, or you're having to participate in an activity that some would say would be legal or would later try to criminalize. And that's what separates us. When you look at the work that individuals have to do to just survive, you have to understand that these individuals was pushed out of a regular 9 to 5. And then we're going to get into that in a moment when we start talking about the systematic oppression. But the biggest point is, even when it wasn't criminalized, it was okay. But the moment that it became our industry, it becomes criminalized. And then I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into that because there's some questions that I think that we need to start answering here. But the only way we can answer those questions is through the research.
So we'll come back, but maybe Paulo, tell us a bit about Endelon.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's been good to see you here in Chicago under this weather. and after we've done, I think, at least 20 research projects together over the years. Probably, right? Yeah. So Endelon stands for the National Day Labor Organizing Network. And these are, we began organizing, putting together the organization back in 1996 by engaging day laborers, the guys who stand outside of Home Depot and home improvement stores, by engaging them, by ensuring that they talk to each other and learn from each other. And at that time, one of the issues that day laborers were facing was similarly to what my brother Alonzo is sharing, the criminalization of labor. Workers were being persecuted because they stood on public sidewalks to look for work. many municipalities across the country made it illegal for people to stand on a sidewalk and solicit employment. Of course, that's one of the first injustices that we challenge, both in the streets, in the court of public opinion, but also in the judicial system. And after taking over 20 municipalities to court, we had a big decision in the Supreme Court. And it was declared that it's unconstitutional to forbid day laborers from standing on public sidewalks to look for work. That campaign took 20 years to get to that decision. And the mission of our organization is to improve the lives of day laborers, enhance the leadership of workers, to achieve political rights, not just for them, but for everybody else. And the reason why I'm sharing the story of the First Amendment rights, of being able to stand on the sidewalk and look for work, is because during the housing market collapse of 2008, a lot of U.S. citizens came, and a lot of contractors came to the corners to look for work. And I don't know if we're walking into a recession. It looks like we might, and we might see so many U.S. citizens standing on street sidewalks looking for work. And the reason why they will be able to do so is because they're an undocumented worker defended the Constitution. And that, my friends, that's social change.
So Alonzo, Equity and Transformation, it's conducted primary research, research right out there in the field. It's conducted evaluation research on the Chicago Future Fund, your guaranteed income program that Equity and Transformation launched several years ago with grassroots support from movement from Black Lives and others. But can you tell us a little bit about how research fits into the organizing and the policy work that your organization is doing?
For me to answer that question, I think I had to take a moment to, one, lift up the Chicago Future Fund. The Chicago Future Fund is a guaranteed income program that's for formerly incarcerated individuals, right? And the reason why that is so important, at the time that we launched it, it was the only one that was in the country. The only one that was in the country to say, here's a guaranteed income program for individuals that's formerly incarcerated. Why is that important? Because it was a couple of unique things that was going on at that time. One, we wanted to change the narrative where individuals would no longer have to look at their post-incarceration, right? Saying that now I'm home, I'm having to deal with all of these permanent punishments. It's 1,600 laws that's still on the books right now that's saying even after you've served your time, not saying that what you did wasn't wrong, but after you served your time, after you paid your debt to society, that these are the collateral consequences of that, right? So with individuals still having to face that, we said, what would it look like instead of you being stigmatized, ostracized, demonized because of a mistake or a crime that you've committed, that what if when you put on that paper that you was a felon, that was the only way that you would be able to receive this. So we turned the narrative around, saying the same way that they turned us away when we went to apply for jobs, if they was to apply for this, they would get turned around. And what the Chicago Future Fund was able to do was for 2 years in a row, we was able to make sure that individuals that was in communities, listen to this now, right? Because this is where it starts to get real serious. Individuals that's living in communities that's living below $20,000 a year. Ask yourself, how could you live off of $20,000 for the entire year in the city of Chicago? But in communities like West Garfield, Austin, Inglewood, individuals are doing just that right now today. So we said these individuals need a guaranteed income. We was able to do this program. With the program, we saw, again, coming back to the research and why it's so important, that all of the things that they said that they would be doing, like not want to go look for a job, we proved that that was wrong. That individuals would sit up here and misuse the money, proved that that was wrong. Said that, individuals would stop looking for work, proved that that was wrong. That they would not have a better quality of life, we proved that that was wrong. Just the fact that you knew that you did not have to worry about a light bill being paid, some child care being taken care of, or having the money to go look for a job, having to not have to resort to survival mechanisms, gave them a better quality of life because it was less stress in their life. They was able to be in better relationships. So the results from this, which you could find in the Chicago Future Fund report, is that everything that they said that was wrong, the research showed that it was not. And that is what we're really facing right now, that the research is proving that the ideas and the thoughts of criminalization, of ostracizing individuals or throwing individuals away and already making up in your mind that, this is what this specific group is going to turn out to be, the research proves it wrong. And that's why the research is so important, especially in the marginalized communities that we service, because you have to understand that there's an overwhelming stigma there. There's an overwhelming stigma that they even deserve to live like that. They don't want to work, right? They're not going to do anything. They're uneducated. But with the Chicago Future Fund, it proved it all wrong. But what I will say and what I will want you all to applaud, that we would not have a Chicago Future Fund if it wasn't for the Survival Economies report, and we would not have been able to do that if it wasn't for Nick Theodore.
All right, Pablo. So your organization has a long track record of research on day labor, on disaster recovery, on policing, on the effectiveness of worker centers. Could you share with us an example or two of some of the research and how it's factored into your organization?
Sure.
Don't mention me.
I think it's inevitable. So you just have to take the love. Enduring social change from the perspective of our organization is the one that's built from the bottom up. And in order to do that, you need to develop the leadership skills of people, or humble people. So we use the Freudian approach, Freudian methodology, otherwise known as popular education, where you believe that the most humble people can be agents of social change. So in order to do that, people need to know who they are and what their interests are and how to do power analysis and how to push for change. So popular education has many components. And one of those components is what's called participatory research. I'm not an academic, but I think it sounds fancy, participatory research. So, and what that means is, for me, is people coming together and learning from each other. So back in 1996, we did an effort. We brought together for a year in a leadership development school that we had every Thursday. And one of the efforts that we conducted at that time was kind of like how do we know who we are? How do we explain people who we are? And people came together and built a profile of who the day laborer was at that time. But when we made those numbers public, nobody believed us because it was us. It was kind of biased, the media said. So that's when we came to you, and we asked if we could do a national day labor survey, and that's what we did. I think we interviewed over 2,500.
Stratified random sample of 2,660 day laborers in 20 states. 20 states in the District of Columbia.
There you go. There you go. And then when he presented the numbers, then the media believed that it was true. And that's why. Well, that's not necessarily why, but it's that's why this type of collaboration with academics, with researchers, is so essential. So that research, it was the first time that we had data, numbers. We have the stories of people. Now we have the numbers to back up those stories, their contributions to society, the reason why, the gardens in the places, around the places where they look for work are green is because of their labor. The reason why the houses look pretty, well painted, is because of those workers who are there. And we had the numbers to prove it. So that's the first research project that we did nationally. And we are a solutions-oriented organization. We see an issue, we intervene to both materially change the world, the conditions of people, but also to enhance the consciousness, not just of the people themselves, but of community, so that people get to know people better. So in that context, we've done so much together.
Yeah, but this makes me think also of the knowledge production that these organizations do in the research that they provide. In the year that Equity and Transformation was founded, the unemployment rate in the Chicago metropolitan area was 2.8%. But this statistic masks another reality of employment in this state and in this city. You probably don't know this, but in that year, in 2018, Illinois had the highest black unemployment rate in the nation among all states. Now we're second behind Kentucky. Black-white earnings differences in the Chicago metro area are among the highest in the country. And during the longest economic expansion in US history, black unemployment barely changed. So between 2010 and 2017, that long recovery that occurred, black unemployment in the Chicago area fell by 0.4%. So what this tells us is that we're not going to grow our way out of the inequalities that we see all around us within the Chicago area. So the question then becomes, how are people living? With the unemployment rate in the metro area is 2.8%, but black unemployment at that time was 17.3%. So what are they doing? And we know that the official unemployment rate misses a lot of people. Equity and Transformation says we know what people are doing, which is engaging in informal economic activity. And it's without them asking that question and without them developing a strategy to research it, this phenomenon, which is all around us, hidden in plain sight, would go unexplored. And so I don't want to miss the opportunity to underscore both organizations are involved in knowledge production that simply would not happen but for those organizations. So I don't know if there's anything, I don't know if there was a question in there, but or a comment, but I want to put that on the table.
Yeah. Thank you for putting it out there. And that's why from the very beginning, we wanted to make sure that research was going to be there, because we knew that they wasn't going to hear our voices. But we also knew that we had the answers, right? There is no way that an individual could be living in the city of Chicago under $20,000 a year. And then when you ask the question why, if they even had enough passion to even ask the question, because most individuals just move along like everything is okay. But how are these communities surviving? And we knew the answers. But as my fellow panelists here had said, nobody wanted to listen to us. And we knew coming out the gate that that's what was going to happen. And that's why we was very strategic in making sure that we had individuals that was willing to co-partner with us to do this research. And then from that pivotal moment, we've made sure that all of our programs, all of the research that we do, our programs, our policies, our campaigns, are all backed up by research. But what it's really saying is that it's backed up by us. Because understand that you've come into our communities to get this information. We have the answers. And what's really happening is that we're in a space, right? And thank you, Nick. Thank you for this, right? Yeah. But we're in a space where we've actually created somewhat of a caste system, whereas individuals are sitting at the top looking down low, saying that the only way that your value will be appreciated if I extract from you, but leave you out of the gains and accomplishments that could actually occur. Because if we wanted to solve this problem, any problem, we have institutions such as this that's doing the research and have the answers. Or are we saying that our communities, the communities that I live in, the communities that I come from, the communities that a generation of my people are still there, that the only thing that we're good for is studying? That becomes problematic. We have to start moving from saying that, you know what, these people or a certain group of people are only good enough to be studied, and move to the fact, like, let's solve that problem. Yeah. And I'm just asking, are we ready to start solving problems?
So Pablo, I mean, picking up on what Alonzo is saying, I mean, there was a period of time where it seemed that day laborers had become like a research population of convenience. You had workers standing in public spaces. You had organizations that were quite receptive. And it seemed like a lot of academic researchers, it wasn't really about day laborers, but there was an easy population that you could survey. And so tell us a little bit about that, and tell us a little bit about how your organizations have reacted to it.
Well, first, let me say this, that I feel that it's an assertion that needs to be made, and that is that knowledge is not only produced in places like this. People out there are very knowledgeable. And I believe that whenever you do research, that's the first assumption, and that you're not coming to extract. In fact, before we engage in our own research projects, there were so many people coming to do exactly that. Because people see day laborers in the streets, they're highly visible. They see them being robbed of their wages. It's very often you see police officers engaging and arresting people. You see security guards. You see employers coming in. It's a very dynamic situation in those corners. So they see that as a microcosm of the big question around immigration. So it's very easy for researchers to go and just interview workers just to extract the information. And I think that is fundamentally wrong. And what we've done is that we have shifted that, and instead of thinking of people as, and by the way, it's not just researchers, it's politicians, it's the media that use day laborers as B-roll for whatever message that they have. But in our case, the research that we've done is to produce knowledge so that we can educate people, and that those workers understand who they are and what their interests are. It hasn't been, not everything has been easy, because we want rigorous research to take place. We don't want to lie to people, and there have been tough questions that we have asked, and that we have oftentimes disagreed, right?
Yes.
I'm sure you remember some of those.
We don't have to talk about that now.
But we've discussed whatever difficult question we have, and we've done it, because otherwise you will have research that's not believable, and that's not useful neither to researchers or to us or to the community that we serve.
You know, I think one of the things I've liked about both your organizations is that you're prepared to do the hard work of this research. I mean, for a lot of the work that is done by with these organizations and by these organizations abides by regular social science standards. Sometimes, I worry with participatory research. It's not a term I use myself. There's a danger of cutting corners and so on. But in both cases, it has been, let's do this the right way, which is sometimes the hard way, and there's been a willingness to do that. And you've both said that this has helped give your organization and the workers that you work with a little more credibility. But I wonder, too, if there isn't a danger that the academic voices begin to crowd out the community voices.
Yes.
And isn't this always a perennial tension
Yeah, I was waiting to answer that question. And I was sitting here thinking about how do I answer that question in a way where it doesn't take away from all of the positive and all of the good that has been done, right? But it always comes to a point where we have to speak truth to power and empower you all to be truthful. Or institutions are translators of our language. That's all it comes down to. The moment that we stop talking to you, you have nothing to translate. At least give us that value, right? Because if you can't come into our communities, if everybody starts stonewalling you, then what will you have, right? So we have to get away from this is how you must do this to you understanding why we do this. And if anything, I want you all to take away the model that, to me, Nick has created here to say this is how we come into community. This is how we co-partner with community. This is how we work with community, right? And this is how we can get things done, because without that, what continues to happen is that the community become wiser and wiser to you. Whereas, you know what, you're speaking a language that I don't understand, and that has no value here, right? Because if you don't know what a Lucy is, then what are you talking to me? Why are you talking to me about the informal community, right? If you don't understand what it means to have to dip and dodge, then guess what? What are you over here talking to me? Matter of fact, why are you here in the first place? Because again, and we're not just talking about the academia, right? We're also talking about these politicians that was mentioned earlier. Like, people are hurting right now. People are hurting right now, and it comes a time where all of the nonsense is over with. Either you're coming to help us solve these problems, or nobody is paying attention to you anymore, right? And that's really where we're ending up now, and we have to be very careful, very, very careful when we're in this space right now where there's people in positions of authority that doesn't even believe in science, right? So we have to be able to start navigating and working with one another, because their thoughts, their ideas is that we don't have no value anyway. So we don't have no time to steady be at each other, not valuing one another, but really looking at this model and how it worked and figure out how we can work together.
Yeah.
So-
Well, let me clarify something. I don't think that we've done participatory research,
Yeah.
so you don't have to worry about
Okay, good.
that. But we've done a combination of it. Like, I mean, it's impossible to go to a day labor corner without a day labor leader or a day labor organizer. You will get nowhere. So we've collaborated. In that sense, I remember workers going and doing the scouting all over the country of where the places where people gather to look for work were. And then the second wave, having students and worker leaders going out to do the interviews. That's why it worked. But it's not full participatory research.
Yeah.
But it's given us the tools for us to push for changes that are materially real for people. You know? And that is like, you can go to a city council with data and tell them, hey, this is not the, sending the cops to arrest people is not the way you address the issue of day laborers. But you can open a worker center, and that's why there are 70 day labor worker centers across the country, because we've had research to substantiate, you know, policy practices and intervention that are inclusive of marginalized communities. And about the tension between researchers and organizers, that will never go away. But I think it's a beautiful tension. It's dialectics.
But I've also heard you talk about a certain ethics that researchers have to abide by. I mean,
It goes both ways. First of all, I mean, you have to come in being respectful to people and ask if they want to be interviewed, being respectful of their time. And in a day labor corner, it's very difficult to do a survey, a survey of 20 minutes, because an employer might show up and then you lost the worker. It's gone, you know. So you have to understand also those circumstances that people are in. So you have to be very respectful of those circumstances. You have to understand that whatever tough question we ask, and if it's not interpreted the right way, presented the right way, might cause harm to people. You know? And similarly for us, we also have a ethics to follow, you know, like asking the tough questions. If we really want to know the reality that people are going through and put numbers to the stories that we already know, then we have to ask the difficult questions. And I remember that, I'm going to say it. Okay? I remember that the first survey that we did, the question about documentation came up. And it was back and forth. You know, should we ask if people had documents or not? And we concluded that it was impossible to have an objective, rigorous research without asking that question. And we discussed, you know, it's how we present the information, where we figure something out without lying to anybody. Yeah. And I think we've walked, I think we've done it well. I'm very proud of you.
Yeah. So when I hear that, though, what I would like to add to that, just being part of the panel, is that one of the things that I see is that being able to actually experience it for myself, right? And I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into that. What we're talking about when we're doing this research, when this research happens, is individuals' lived life experience. That means it happened for real, right? Not your theory, right, that you're trying to prove, right? So I don't know if this is the space to go into that, right? You're trying to prove a theory of something that happened to me for real. But so you need to figure out what's really happening for real to see if your theory is being proven, right? And I'm the one with the answers. But the way that we built that relationship and what I'm hearing, what have I experienced with working with Nick Theodore is that he came in building trust, not coming in with a savior complex, right? Saying that we have the answers and it needs to happen like this. No, he built trust. And to build trust, we was actually in community together. He didn't have no problem coming to where we were at, right? It wasn't that we get the meet over here. It's like, no, come to where it's happening at, right? This builds trust. And I think that the other part with that we can't get away from is having that reciprocity, right? It's not just an extraction, but it's also what's giving. Because it's not just that he's giving us, and I think that this never should have happened, and I'm even in tension with it right now in all transparency. Like, why do I need you to give me credibility? That's right. When without my lived life experience, you wouldn't have no credibility, right? Because you have to come study me. Think about that for a moment, right? We're in an institution where we're talking about individuals operating in genius. We all could think here, right? The core of it is us, and you're studying us, right? And if you didn't have nothing to study, then what would you be doing? So with that being said, it was Nick being able to build trust, being able to just have respect for one another, right? And then with that respect, we was able to get the job done. And I think that it's often that individuals are forgetting those components and saying that this is just what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, and you all don't know any better. And the truth is, we have a lot that we know. And it's the information that research needs. And with it being done the right way, right? Being done the right way, I believe that there's a lot that could be done.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that the way we built the necessary trust. The way we've done it is that it's from the beginning. Even the questionnaire, we do it together. And what are the things that we want to know? And you engage workers, you engage organizers, and you participating in that setting. That's how it starts. And yes, you may bring your hypothesis, but we also have our own hypotheses. And we find middle ground on how we do it. And it takes time, a lot of energy, a lot of debate, but it's the right thing to do. And we've gotten, I think, incredible results.
So we have a few minutes left, but we'd like to open it up. I think I see a hand already.
Before we open it up, is one more I think we should add. Is one, this model consisted of trust, two, reciprocity, and also if you all see me sitting on this panel right now, it's evidence of the consistency. They didn't just get the information and run away, we're still working together.
It's like blinding up here. Yeah, I think the mic's going to come around, but I can't see anybody. I do see some arms. So I don't know where the mics are. Oh, there it is.
Okay. First and foremost, our praise is due to the Most High, and thank you all for what you all have done. Give it up for this is powerful more than we know. My name is Sister Yacht Simpson. I am a community epidemiologist with the local health department, and I co-authored the book, The State of Health for Blacks. So, and Richard is my spiritual brother, by the way. I'm out of TRS, so
all right.
I'm your parent.
Okay, all right.
But the point that I want to make is we need to take this a little further. I mean, this is nice and cute. But we need to really take it to life expectancy. And we know that here in Chicago, the life expectancy of a black man is the lowest among anybody, black and brown, but definitely black men at 69 years old. What are we gonna do to increase you all's life expectancy? We got to work on that, because if you ain't here, I ain't here, we ain't here. Okay. And we did something for the first time at the health department where we had the voices of black men speaking on the solutions for black men. I'd like to hear that from the black and brown men of what you think your solutions can be for life expectancy. All right, that is a deep research question, but
No, I would like Pablo.
Now the generosity kicks in.
I can, well, let me just answer by sharing an example right now. After the fires, I live in Pasadena, close to the Altadena area. And I can tell you that with certainty, that after every natural disaster, the life expectancy of workers diminishes. In the case of where people are remediating homes right now, cleaning homes, because we don't know what kind of contaminants exist inside the homes that were adjacent to the fires. Workers are going in without proper health and safety equipment to protect their health. And residents, black and brown, are coming back to those homes that have not been remediated and are being exposed to all kind of contaminants. So when I see it from the worker angle, to increase the life expectancy of workers is basically ensuring that they have what they need when they go and do the work, and so they go back to their families at the end of the day the same way they left in the morning. That's how I see it from the angle of working people.
Okay.
I think we had a question.
All right, we see it a little bit different with equity and transformation. So looking at this research that we went through, we decided to create a Black Wellness Program. And with that Black Wellness Program, there's a part of it, one of the pillars focuses on physical dexterity, where individuals are able to learn how to eat better, how to deal with their stress, how to be more resilient, but more importantly, how to operate in community in a way that is not stressful to others and it creates a better quality of life for themselves. And we believe that this has to be holistic, because what we're not dealing with is the trauma that's trapped in our DNA, that they're telling us that the only way that we can release it is in a toxic manner, because they haven't given us any ways to do it positive, and then you get locked up for it, right? So we turned all of those things around and said, these are the ways that we could do this, and it's an 8-week program that we send individuals through that's looking to actually say, you know what, I want a better quality of life for myself. I did not know that, you know what, I need to start getting tested for prostate cancer. I did not know that, you know what, because I was living there, I'm living out here in Argyle Gardens by this garbage dump, that I'm having eczema and asthma, right? And that, you know what, I probably need to start eating and drinking some coconuts and drinking some coconut water, right? So we're doing those things to make sure that not only the life expectancy can be better, be longer, but the quality of life can be better. All right.
So I think we have time for one question.
So I did my undergrad here. I studied intercultural gatekeeping, so gatekeeping within our own cultures. And I'm just going to piggyback off of Nick's question. How has code switching and respectability politics impacted your work both within community and outside of it?
I couldn't hear the question.
Okay, sorry. How has respectability politics and code switching impacted your work both within and outside of community?
With the code switching part, I believe that the truth is that it's a phenomenon that has been totally westernized, where individuals can pretend to be something that they're not and get celebrated for that. All right. And I believe that it does a disadvantage to individuals that's authentic. And with them being authentic, they're often shunned. We see this showing itself up in bullying, individuals body shaming people, individuals being stigmatized by just the color of their skin. So when we actually start talking about that again, we have to really deal with what that is. If you can go on social media and pretend to be somebody that you're not, right, and get accepted for that until you actually show up, what are we really saying? So I think that we need to address that, but in addressing that, individuals really need to embrace and celebrate who they are, understanding why they are, and then understanding where they are, right? Because a lot of individuals are living in delusion, and the reality is hitting hard and fast. And if nothing, this political climate is showing us that. The other part that I would like to add is that when it comes to doing research, and I phrase it this way, Nick has shown us what it looks like to be more of a bridge than a gatekeeper. Right? Because we can now bring two separate bodies that has been separated together, right? Instead of saying what will be accepted and what would not be accepted. And it's been too long that our lives, our culture, our way of living, and us as a people haven't been accepted until it's only able to benefit others. And Nick has shown us that we could do so much better than that, and I think we should continue to strengthen this bridge.
The little red light on the floor has told me our time has run out, and Joe Horath has confirmed it. So,
I did want to say that in case you all did not get a copy of that Chicago Future Fund, there are some hard copies in the back. Or, Greg, could you raise your hand? He has a few that he would love to share with you all. All right, thank you all.
So, Alonzo Wahid, Pablo Alvarado, Eat and Endelon, thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time. Thank you. You all could go. I appreciate you. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right. Another great panel. I'm going to transition us to the next portion, which in a different way will be, I'm very sure, just as enriching and enlightening for us. the lightning talk portion of the program. So I want to say out loud for if you are a lightning talk speaker, please make your way to the front here next to Carla if you haven't already done so you can be ready and lined up. So I would like to welcome Keith Lewis, who is the Senior Director of Community Collaboration here at UIC and an adjunct professor in the College of Business. Keith will introduce the lightning talk portion and get that ready to go. Keith serves on the Chancellor's Committee on the Status of Black Brothers, Teaching Advisory Council, UIC Partnerships for Anti-Racist Campus Transformation, and the Advisory Committee for Black Student Success. He also serves on the boards of directors for Community Leadership Fellows, Chicago Rites of Passage, the Mentoring Institute, and the Chicago Community Trust African American Legacy Fund. He is active in leadership development and racial healing, and an alum of Greater Chicago, Leadership Greater Chicago, and the Latino Policy Forum's Multicultural Leadership Academy. Please welcome Keith Lewis.
So first of all, let's give it up for that panel, y'all. I had the privilege of working with Brother Alonzo before I came to UIC through some other work, and I'm just, man, I'm just really touched and inspired. Always have been, but as you have evolved now. So I am just here to set the stage. Again, I am Keith Lewis. I am the Senior Director of the Office of Community Collaboration. And what was just said, it so resonated because it speaks to the genesis of our office. And I really want to point out when I say the Office of Community Collaboration, that was very intentional, that namesake, because it speaks to a lot of what both Alonzo and Pablo talked about in the ways in which universities enter in community and exist in community. We didn't want it to be the engagements which oftentimes can be transactional and extractive, but it is really a way that we are truly at the same level and we are doing it with community and not to community. And that is something not only that we hold ourselves to account for, but we expect for community to hold us accountable, in that way. And that is very much about that really shapes how we navigate. Our office, again, has been in existence now for 3 years. It started off on the premise of our former Chancellor Michael Amaritis' Advancing Racial Equity Task Force, as we looked how to strengthen UIC's presence on the south and west sides, also how to strengthen pathways for Black students to UIC. And again, as this panel talked about, how to strengthen community collaborative research in a very genuine and authentic way. And so that is what we have embarked on in a way to mobilize institutional change and spark community growth in these two neighborhoods of North Lawndale and Auburn Gresham. So what that looks like is that we have, yes, give it up for North Lawndale and Auburn Gresham, absolutely. So what that looks like, we are instituting, our office is a place-based strategy called the Neighborhood Center Initiative. And that consists of three, soon to be 4 pillars of work. But we do pathways, programming, participatory research by my affectionately work wife, Dr. Jennifer Breyer, who leads that aspect, and soon to be policy and advocacy. So one thing that we fundamentally understood with this work is that when we began this 3 years ago, as much as that our aim is to how these help to play some role in the transformation of these communities, but it was also how UIC needs to change. And there's a lot of things that UIC needs to change in this way. But I would say at the core of it is about centering community voice and community experience and the expertise that lies and exists. And so we find ways to also make sure with whatever our programming, through research, that is at the core of our values. And so that's really what today in respects is, to highlight and set the stage for our community partners that are doing vital and critical work to impact and change the lives of residents, not only in Auburn, Gresham, and North Lawndale, but throughout the city of Chicago. And so we really want today, in that true spirit, we want to share the stage, as we should. And so that is part of what we're going to do. We have 2 of our partner organizations that I'm very proud that will have a chance to share how we're working with them in certain ways. But then there are other organizations that are also doing some great work that we want you to learn more about, and how they're working with UIC, not only how we're working with them now, but how we can do that better moving forward. So with that, I am going to transition over to our partners. I think I'm about right at time. I think I did good, Joe. I hope so. I tried to. Okay, thank you so much.
I'm a little shorter than the brother Keith, so I have to adjust my mic. Forgive me. Right. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tony Woods. I'm the founding executive director of Public Equity. So at Public Equity, we bring a public health approach to the front lines of community violence intervention. The need is urgent, and the stakes are really a matter of life and death. We currently service the greater Inglewood and Auburn Gresham neighborhoods. Some of you may know these communities. They are really rich in history, culture, and resilience, but oftentimes overlooked when it comes to resources and investments. At Public Equity, our mission is to advocate for public safety, public health, and equitable resource distribution in underserved communities to create a lasting social impact. But let me walk you through how we bring that mission to fruition. So first would be our vision, which is to disrupt violence at its roots by addressing the structural and social conditions that fuel it. We take a public health and a public safety approach, working to interrupt cycles of harm, build communities where individuals and families don't just survive, but thrive. Second, our strategies are grounded in the community. So similar to what the brother here was saying, we don't create solutions for people, we create solutions with people. And that's why our motto is centered with leadership for those most impacted by violence. And we co-design prevention strategies and targeted public health interventions that reflect local wisdom, voices, and the need of the community. And finally, through our holistic intervention model, this means we provide comprehensive violence prevention services that include an array of people and special service providers, violence prevention specialists, crisis and hospital responders, victims advocates, community health organizers, and case managers. And these teams all work in sync to meet people where they are, whether they're recovering from trauma, navigating loss, or just trying to break free from these cycles of violence. Together, these efforts create the foundation for long-term stability, more resilient, and safer communities. And I just want to say at Public Equity, we believe that safety is not a privilege. It should be a right for everybody. Lasting change doesn't come from outside, it comes from within by the people that are most impacted by this problem. We don't just respond to violence. We're planting seeds for hope, equity, health on every block we serve. So this is my call to action. It doesn't matter if you're a policymaker, a partner, or just a concerned citizen. There is a role for you in this work. Together, we can reimagine what's possible for our communities. and build a future where every person has the right to not just live, but truly thrive. My name is Tony Woods, founder and director of Public Equity. Thank you all.
So I'm a little humbled to be among these organizational leaders. I'm an assistant professor. My name's Kate Albrecht. I'm here in the College of Urban Planning and Public Affairs at UIC. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about community engaged research that I'm doing, but I also just want to recognize that this is an amazing group to be a part of. So I'm showing you what I'm working on, and I would love engagement and feedback on this as well. So right now within Chicago, there are many purpose-oriented networks. So that's just a fancy term for organizations that come together to understand how to better health and wellness. And so I'm working with a group trying to understand those connections or sort of map those networks. Some of you might recognize sort of the sentiment at the bottom. This is a quote from a local network leader who said, "We're so frustrated. We say it to our funders all the time. We don't need another call for proposals." Exactly, nope. We need our funders to understand the capacity that exists and to then build upon it. So that's the essence of my work. So through a community-based participatory research process funded by the David Perry Award and the Institute for Public Policy and Civic Engagement, thank you, Joe, I'm engaging with leaders of local networks. So this kind of spaghetti diagram here is a basic visualization of all of the networks. So those are organizations coming together to build health and wellness groups across Chicago. And we must understand from these network managers, directly from those doing the work, how this community is a system. This is a community that's vibrant and interconnected. We have to focus on strategy for those connections. And instead of rebuilding the wheel every time there's a new funding opportunity, we need to think about rebuilding those connections and the social capital that's already growing and thriving in this community. And so I've been working recently with a number of these local networks. Some of them are organizations that bring in lots of partnerships. Some of them are more connected to directly public health questions. But we're undertaking human-centered design. And what we're doing here is understanding how organizations can create a way to communicate with their funders about the capacity they already have and how those funders can help them grow instead of take their time and energy in other directions. So the first step of human-centered design is that empathy. This amazing event today not only gives me more empathy, but also I have attended many local meetings, many groups coming together and just listening. What is happening? What is needed? We started to ideate and define that problem, and there's a brief little thing here I'm going to show you as our prototype that I hope you all can talk to others about and even talk to me about. So one of the main things is sitting in these meetings and understanding the community, but from the perspective of those people who are living, managing these groups, right? So we all know everyone is doing 300 times more than they ever did before with 300 times less. But there's got to be a better way forward. So I've been working with these local purpose-oriented networks, or these networks of health and wellness groups, to come up with a way to communicate with funders. We're just getting started. I have two little pictures here of some dashboards that we're developing, but these would not be possible without the managers of these networks, the local organizations, opening their calendars, their meetings, their time to me and other folks engaged in this participatory research to start to build a system in which communities have the skills to communicate with researchers to those funders who help support them. This is all about building sustainability. And so I just want to kind of finish on this idea that with our empathy, with our human-centered design, with our time and energy put together, there is so much possibility for researchers, local organizations, and these networks to build a better ecosystem, to better communicate, and to actually reach to our funders and say, I don't want to do the same thing twice, let's do something new together. That was a lovely sound, and that means I'm almost out of time. But yes, we are engaging in network manager beta testing, member feedback, and we're going to plan in the fall a workshop to show funders, so that can be both government and philanthropic, how to better use the information and knowledge of our communities. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I am not good at this. I prefer 2 or 3 people in a room, so I'm really nervous, but thank you. My name is Melissa Cressfield. I work for PCC Community Wellness Center. I am a long-term resident of the West Side, and I've worked on the West Side in a federally qualified health center for the last 15 years. What a federally qualified health center is, it's an organization that is a community health center, but we serve uninsured or underinsured patients. So our organization has 40,000 patients on the west side of Chicago, mostly in Austin and then the nearby neighborhoods. Oh, that's backwards, sorry. So PCC stands for patient-centered care. Why is that important? Well, when you walk into a neighborhood, when we talk about community engagement, it's really easy to tell people what the answer is, what their solution is. And our goal at PCC is to walk into the exam room and into neighborhoods and listen to what people know they need. It's a subtle shift, but it is a very powerful one. We bring access to quality care to all, and we do about 150,000 visits annually. What's unique about us is that we have the first freestanding birth center in the city of Chicago and in the state of Illinois. Which actually brings options for birth equity to the people of the West Side, to the birthing parents of the West Side, which you don't see very often. We have rooms that are home-like, that have tubs in them, so people can labor in a delivery room with a bathtub instead of being in the hospital, so that's really cool. A little bit about who we are as far as community engagement. So we really believe every human deserves access to housing, food, healthcare, safe work, and education, full stop. There's nothing you need to do to earn that. Because of that, we want to take it even a step further. Some of us are, believe in the Bible, right? And so in the Bible, it talks about life and life more abundant. And so that's really what I think of personally when I do community engagement. We're not just looking for the basic human rights, but what would it look like for us to have an abundant life that starts to affect our entire society? Society as a whole would be better off if everyone was working in what they were brought here to do, right? If they were accessing their gifts, if they had the education so that they could be the best and the highest version of themselves. So, community engagement is not a checklist of do's and don'ts. When I think about community engagement from my role at PCC and my role here at the Greater Lawndale Healthy Work Project, a few words come to mind. The first one being curiosity. Listen to learn and not to be right, okay? I will say this, listen very carefully. For the academics in the room, there is no book you can read or class you can take ever in your life that will give you the knowledge that the people with lived experience have. Full stop. Ever, ever, ever. That being said, as academics, as organizations, what do we do with experts? We pay them. Stop having pizza parties to pay your, the people you collect data from. So, and I'm saying this because we expect our expertise and our hard work and our knowledge to be paid for, right? I wouldn't ask one of my doctors to come in the room and give me a diagnosis for a couple slices of pizza and a $10 gift card. I know that's hard to swallow, and I know it's not a lot of our personal decisions, but we need to be standing constantly in acknowledgement that these people are not just some people that we base our research around. But let's put our money where our mouth is and start to do the hard work of making those small shifts that acknowledge their expertise. Because we know long-term solutions only work when they come from the community, which someone else just pointed out. Humility, that goes along with that. The letters behind your name don't make you an expert on someone else's life experience. I had to, 30 seconds, okay. I had to come to terms with that. That was hard for me, right? Like, I have to go in and I have more education and I have to listen to people. Let it go. Let it go. It will be good for you and it will be good for them in the long term. And let go of your death grip on your agenda and your timeline. One of the big tenets of white supremacist culture is this urgency. Other cultures don't work like that. We need to, when we go into communities, understand that different cultures work differently and honor that. Okay. How do we leverage our resources at PCC? Really quick. The first thing is quality care in the exam room. Measuring ourselves next to other organizations that take full insurance, right? We want to give the same type of care. Equity in birthing options. We want people to have every choice how and where they deliver their child. Holistic services. We just built a huge new building on Lake Street. It's super exciting. We have a whole wellness wing. And so we're trying to build a campus where people in Austin can go for their primary care, but also for their dentistry, for their PT, for their cardiology, and then also get their veggies once a week at our VeggieRx program. So like everything in between. And finally, hiring and vendor selection. How do you put your money where your mouth is? You hire people from the community. When you choose a vendor, you choose someone from the community. So all of these things are ways that PCC is really working to dynamically do life with the people they serve and be engaged in that way. That's it, thank you.
Next shorty here. Hi, I'm Kate Eakin, and I'm the Managing Director of McKinley Park Development Council. We advocate for the McKinley Park neighborhood of Chicago. If you don't know where that is, we're off the Orange Line, halfway between downtown and Midway. Our mission is to organize, inform, and support our neighbors in building the community we want to live in, physically, culturally, and economically. While we primarily work in the built environment, we recognize that anything we do with the built environment has socioeconomic implications. And also, we have a nice neighborhood the way it is. But anything that we want to do is we talk about shaping our neighborhood where we have a Latin majority and a growing Asian population. That cultural expression part is incredibly important to making our neighborhood reflect us. Queremos una comunidad por nosotros y para nosotros. Our neighborhood is for us, and the things that come into our neighborhood need to reflect who lives here. So we do 4 basic things to make that happen. Everything we do revolves around community engagement. So when somebody wants to come into the neighborhood, some new entity, we make sure that our neighbors know about it. And we say, hey, this thing is coming, this is how this process works, and here's how you can get engaged. We also go out and engage our neighbors about the things that we want to see in the neighborhood. Say, hey, what do you want to happen in this space over here? What would we like to see happen as we revitalize 35th Street and open our storefronts for the first time in 20 years? What do you want to see here? We also create opportunities for our neighbors to engage. So sometimes when a development comes in, it's happening, you know, there's a public process built in. In that case, we promote the hell out of it and help people understand what they can bring to the meeting to be part of that process. And other times, when we don't have that process, we make one. And then we take all of that stuff and we go to bat for our neighbors in public and private spheres, with elected officials, for funders, with developers, you name it. And so I want to show you a little bit about what we've done through this in the last couple of years. So McKinley Park has a neighborhood plan that over 800 neighbors participated in creating. All of those community engagement events for that process were trilingual. That was published in 2021, and with assistance from CMAP. And then we were like, this is great. We've been working on this for a really long time. These are really big goals. How do we do this? And so we came to UIC and said, hey, can you help us figure out how to implement this thing? And so out of that, we've started to funnel from our neighborhood plan. And so the next two documents that you see here were created in collaboration with UIC to look at different parts of our neighborhood, namely 35th Street, which was downzoned to residential in 2004, and consequently our storefronts are vacant. In February of this year, we finally got it rezoned to mixed use, which is super exciting. Thank you. And we're putting that community engagement to work, trying to enable our neighbors to reopen those storefronts. You know, we're not opposed to external investment, but we are not seeking it. We are seeking to help our neighbors do these things ourselves. All right. The next one here is called Bridging the Gaps, and that was a project we worked with UIC's CUPPA, again, last year's class, to look at a segment of the riverfront at the intersection of Bubbly Creek and the South Branch. And that fed into the plan that you see next to it, which is the South Branch Connectivity Project Framework Plan, funded by Chicago Community Trust. It was our first big grant, allowed us to hire our first employee, and changed our world. With this plan, we will eventually establish a connected pedestrian and bike path from Western Avenue all the way to Chinatown, goes through 3 neighborhoods, affects 7 neighborhoods, and brings up opportunities for new green space, right? So we did a lot of community engagement to help that happen. We have about 600 neighbors participated. And so with the very short time that I have left, I want to show you what that looks like. So remember, we do 4 things, right? We're gonna go, it's a circle, where we gather information from our neighbors, we say, what do you want? We bring people into things that are happening, and then we go get it, right? So we had about a dozen community engagement events for the Riverfront Plan. And so I want you to show you, but it's not enough just to bring people in and get information for them, right? They need to see it. They need to see that you're using it. They need to see what's happening with it. So that photo on the left is of a charrette where we had 130 people come out on a Friday night to tell us what they wanted on the river, right? And that, that was a lot of hands-on activities for all ages. We had kids, we had grannies, we had everybody out there. And that, again, one of about 12 events, the largest of them that also included, you know, the focus groups, the studies, all the surveys, all the things you might think of. But that hands-on piece is really, really important. Our neighbors value in-person communication. One of the things we learned in the process of developing that plan was that most of our neighbors had never been on the river. Why is that? Because it's been blocked off for 150 years by polluting industry. And as that industry is naturally moving out and those lots are turned over, we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to capture it for public amenities and public green space, and that's what we're doing. So what you see in the picture, thank you. What you see in the picture on the right is where we work with Friends of the Chicago Rivers to take our neighbors out in canoes, many of them on the water for the first time in their lives, including people who spent their whole lives in the neighborhood. So what are we doing now with that? We're working on the land connections, and we're working on the traffic safety to make it possible to get to and from the river and to connect these areas to our commercial businesses, to drive traffic to our small businesses, not just in McKinley Park, but also in Pilsen, Bridgeport, and Chinatown. And so again, when we walked through this process, so we did a walk audit of 500 Chicago blocks. We cataloged pedestrian safety conditions and bicycle conditions. And you'll see in the flyer here where we walked once a week for about 8 weeks. We had about 30 neighbors and a number of volunteers from the National Park Service who helped us with this. We told everybody exactly what they're using their data for. We put it on maps and we said, this is the data that you created. What did we miss? And then you see on the far side where we said, these are the trends we found. What are the most important things to you? And we are currently in the process of taking that to elected officials and transportation authorities to get those repairs made so that our neighbors can get to work safely, use public transportation, and enjoy our new green space. Thank you.
As I'm walking the stage, can I have a water? Like, being so thrilled. There's one of I'm gonna be real. Don't stare at me drinking water. Y'all continue to look at me. I don't like it. And then just click back and forth. Back and forth. All right, cooperative practice. As you can tell, I'm very nervous. You're good. Am I good? There you go. Ooh. Oh, no, I was practicing. I was joking. Never nervous, always ready.
All right, y'all. How y'all doing today? Cool. I hate lightning talks. Too fast. But how y'all doing? Y'all sound so tired. Like, I'm gonna be so quiet and so out of it. How y'all doing today? Ooh, we fired up. I like that. So today we're talking about We Are Not Your Case Study, a community approach to community. Sound good? Yes. I don't hear enough yeses. Some of y'all too quiet for that. Cool. Great. I'm Oscar Sanchez. I'm from the southeast side of Chicago, born and raised. I'm gonna say it like this: Chicago is home, Chicago is love. If Chicago is love, how do we defend each other and people, right? Yes or no? Right. I love that. I appreciate that. Right. I grew up with nothing. I grew up in poverty. I grew up with parents of immigrants. I grew up like that. And I know many of y'all relate to that story. And if you don't, I need y'all to listen to these stories. Sound good? Oh my gosh. So I appreciate that. Ooh. Good. With that being said, I think it's really important where we talk about where we come from. I come from the southeast side. You're gonna hear me say this over and over again. Where am I from? Oh, thank y'all. Y'all reminded me where I'm from. Say that one more time. There you go. Damn, y'all making me, stop. I need to do this presentation. Don't make me blush. I'm used to people not listening to me. Look, let's be very clear. There's a clear problem with this, right? When it comes to institutions, we are always extracted from, right? It's not a good relationship that we're having with institutions. Let's be very honest, right? Colonialism is when you go to a community, extract from them, put your name on the funding, and they receive dimes. Ooh, the community groups are speaking up now. I like y'all. But let's be very clear. But we're talking about UIC and different partnerships, but I want to be very upfront and be very grateful for the people that have shown up for my community, because when we talk about actual relationships, we have to talk about General Iron. We're going to talk about how there's this development coming from the north side, coming to the southeast side, and the community had no choice. And I'm asking y'all, if y'all heard about this, what did institutions do? What are institutions doing today? It got really quiet so fast. I'll tell you, what happened immediately is that our partners from UIC, I want to give so much love and respect to Jenny and her team of Daisy Magana, Hannah Williams. Immediately, they're like, what can we do? And we're like, hey, we've been working on something called a data book, actually documenting the experiences of community members, because every time you go to the city or government comes back to us saying, well, where's your proof? We have dying community members, we have starving children, we have the worst infrastructure, and then we get a response saying, what's the proof? We got the proof, and that's why we're thankful for this institution. Not only that, the actual way people show up, the way we're talking right now, right? Let's be very honest and very fluid and be actually saying what we need to get across. That's the relationship that I have to those people that showed up for us. That's the type of relationship you need to have with your partners. If they have to switch the way they talk in order for them to be seen, I'm gonna tell you this right now, your partners do not know what zoning and land use are. I'm telling you right now, they do not know what the policy language is, but they know what the outcome is. So the responsibility of our institutions is to teach, because I'll say this right now, not all kinfolk are skinfolk, and not all skinfolk are kinfolk. So when somebody's asking earlier about how we're making sure we have black voices and brown voices, sometimes those voices are also the people trying to get industry into our communities that's been killing us. But we have, as an institution, be able to teach folks and also make sure we can come to an image that's outside of academia. Because if academia is only asking partners to come here instead of having this event in a public space in the South Side, we have to go further. Y'all, please look at my slides. I worked so hard on them. I think I talked on that already. Oh, I like this one. Y'all can read this, and I'll finish up in like 10 seconds. At the end of the day, what's gonna happen is the way that we're speaking right now, very candidly. People are scared, people are starving. I'll tell you this right now, for academia, and I say this with so much love, we have been scared and we have been hungry. right? Feeling the pressures of having to do things a certain way because of how our funding source is coming from, y'all, welcome to the table. That's how we've been talking to y'all for a long time. So with that being said, I'm gonna end saying UIC's board is working to be coming also the board from a quantum site in the southeast side of Chicago. So this is my public ask. With UIC's board of directors, meet with the Southeast Sites Coalition for Quantum Site, and that's the end of my talk, y'all. Thank you.
All right. I guess last but hopefully not least. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kalen Todd, and I am the Chief Impact and Innovation Officer with the North Lawndale Employment Network. Thank you. We got some partners in the room, right? Our mission is to improve the earnings potential of the North Lawndale community through innovative employment initiatives that lead to economic advancement and an improved quality of life. But today, I don't want to start with statistics, right? I want to start by asking a simple question. What does it feel like to be invisible? What does it feel like to be invisible? To wake up every day wanting to work, wanting to contribute, only to be overlooked. To submit application after application and never hear back. To walk into an interview and see it in their eyes before you even sit down that they've already made their decision. Well, I'll tell you, for 16,441 individuals in North Lawndale, this isn't just a feeling, it's their reality. And our goal as an agency is to reduce the unemployment rate in North Lawndale by 10% by 2027, right? Because we want population impact. We want to see the needle moved. And this was the reality for Eric, too. Eric is from North Lawndale. He's a father, a son, a man who made a mistake and paid his dues to society. But when he came home, he was ready to work, ready to prove himself. He applied everywhere, from warehouses to restaurants to retail stores, but no one would give him a chance. Weeks turned into months, doors kept closing. And one night, sitting at his kitchen table, he asked himself, am I ever gonna get a real shot at this? And then he found us. At the North Lawndale Employment Network, we run a program called U-Turn Permitted. It's designed for people like Eric, right? People who've had a brush with the law, but are ready to work, but keep hitting barriers. U-Turn Permitted does more than just job training. It helps people rebuild their confidence, restore their dignity, develop professional skills, and connect with real opportunities. For many, that first opportunity comes through our social enterprises, one of two that we own and operate on campus. Eric started at Sweet Beginnings LLC, where he worked in beekeeping, yes, beekeeping, and production, making our all-natural honey, Bee Love honey care products. So yes, we do own and operate bee homes or bee apiaries on the west side of Chicago and throughout the Chicagoland area. And we use that as a means for transitional job opportunities for those who with high barriers to employment. But this wasn't just a job for Eric, right? This was a bridge, a place where he could prove himself, build discipline, and earn a paycheck. And then he moved on to our other social enterprise, the Bee Love Cafe. Has anyone ever been to the Bee Love Cafe? All right, wonderful. I recommend the Bee Stinger. If you ever come, we gotta have you out. But at the Bee Love Cafe, he trained as a barista apprentice, where he learned customer service, time management, and the fast-paced skills of the food industry. With every shift, every paycheck, he started to believe in himself again. And one day, after a long shift, Eric told me something I would never forget. And I always get emotional around this part, but he said, you know, for the first time in years, I feel like somebody sees me, like I matter. This is what it's all about, right? Because when people feel invisible, they stop trying. They lose hope. But when we see them, invest in them, really believe in them, everything changes. And that's why in NLEM, we don't do this work alone. In 2002, the Great Cities Institute commissioned a study, a groundbreaking study called Drugs, Crimes, and Consequences, where we found that 57% of the residents in North Lawndale were justice impacted, right? And so that's where our passion population grew out of. And I'm happy to report that 23 years later, we're now recommissioning that study to see, kind of what were the changes, what were the ebbs and flows, and how can we continue to redesign our program so that it meets the needs of the residents that we're serving each and every day. All right. But it doesn't stop there. We also see this partnership and kind of process with the Office of Community Collaboration and the Center for Literacy. Shout out to Jenny and Eric and Andrea, if she's in the room, with bringing a powerful new resource to North Lawndale, a GED program designed with them in mind, right? Because getting a diploma isn't just about education, it's about finally being seen. This is what true community engagement looks like. It's a business owner saying, yes, I'll choose to hire differently. It's a policymaker saying, yes, I'll invest in real workforce development. It's that neighbor saying, yes, I see you, I believe in you, keep going. And that's how we begin to change lives. So I want to leave you all with one question. Who will you choose to see? Because the power of community isn't just in words, right? We can talk all day, the rhetoric is there. It's in action. And when we act together, we build a future where no one is invisible. Thank you.
A round of applause for all our lightning talks. Fantastic, really fantastic. In fact, 5 minutes does not do justice, I know that. And I appreciate what the knowledge and wisdom and experience that you all brought to this stage today. You shared really incredible and powerful examples of what engagement looks like and what it means. I'm going to, if everyone can just bear with me, we somehow packed in so much in a short period of time that I don't think we would do this important topic justice if we just said, thanks, peace out, everybody, good night, Just a few, I've been taking copious notes. I've been trying to think about things that are sticking with me and might stick with others. So if you give me just a few minutes to uplift some of the comments and perspectives that have been shared here across all the panels and talks today. Just thinking about the first panel, Teresa's panel with Wim and Phil, and just using and looking back and thinking about history, right? And what can we learn from that history? And looking back at where people have tried things before and what wisdom lies in that. And it not to say, oh, here we go again, trying things that have failed, but what were things that worked, or what were things that were innovative that we're pulling forward through time into the current context? That there's different sources of knowledge, value in bringing them together. And I think we heard that reiterated today from all of the panelists and the lightning talks. The importance of doing work with communities, we heard that as a theme, pretty much in all the panels, all the lightning talks. Phil talked about in his model at his center, adding chairs to the research table. So while part of this conversation was people sharing their real experiences with community engagement, for those of us that do this work here, and for students who are learning about it, some of this is for us. A lot of this is for us, right? Sure, there's what good research is, it looks like, and what we're trained to do, and then how that actually works in practice in a respectful, relationship building and rigorous way, as Teresa pointed out in that panel. And then we heard from our keynote speaker, really that the dominant neoliberal administrative structure of universities runs at cross purpose to its social justice work, and that just stuck with me. That just like from my colleagues here, such a beautiful articulation of attention that we feel every single day when we're thinking about what projects to do, how could we go out for whatever grant, or how best to advise a state agency that's looking for advice from us on how better to run its programs. And panel 2, what a powerful example of co-produced knowledge. Thank you, Nick, for organizing and bringing that panel to this session, and just all kinds of beautiful nuggets of quotes and wisdom that we heard from Alonzo, reminding us that part of, Alonzo, what you and your organization and your work bring is empowering us, empowering you all to be truthful. I took that as a direct challenge to me in my work. And Pablo, how you acknowledge the tension between research and community as maybe, researchers and community as maybe a healthy tension, a dialectic, something that we need to not avoid or eschew or run from, but figure out how to be in that space together and make something like powerful out of it. And then the second panel, I'm sorry, that was the second panel. And then to the extent that any comments that I shared were reinforced by our lightning talks today, really makes me feel really enlightened and inspired by the mix of all of these sessions that we had today. So a round of applause just for everybody who participated, who contributed. Thank you. From all these great points and questions and comments, I hope you found something today that was shared that was either actionable, inspiring, or at least hopeful regarding building more just and resilient communities. And I also want to acknowledge that across UIC, the folks who are involved, it's just a tiny sample of the folks who do this community engaged research. You may even have heard people reference names of people who you didn't see on the stage, and it really is that the great city's commitment has been embedded, and it's really in the DNA of this campus. And so there's a ton more folks that we could acknowledge and who their work are doing this kind of work, but we only have a short session here today. I'd like to thank our panelists, our moderators, Chancellor Miranda, Cook County President Preckwinkle, and all the Board of Advisors and members that help sort of bring credibility and weight and heft to this event. Dean Stacy Swearingen White for your leadership. Our panel moderators, Professors Cordova and Nick Theodore. Our media partners, WBZ and Vocalo. Most importantly, the folks who did all of the hard work that it takes to build and pull off an event like this, and to get people in this room such that we have folks around the corner. Hopefully you're able to see us on the screen and to fill this room. Jenny Sweeney, Carla Bailey, and the Jaskoka Terman team, Brian Flood, Norma Ramos, Jessica Cortez, all of the research assistants and anyone else I've neglected to mention for their hard work on this event. We look forward to seeing you again in person. Come back to this event next year. It's an annual event. We'd love to see you and be in dialogue with you again. And thanks everyone again. Peace out and good night.